I don't think a long-term author, somebody who's in it for the long term, will be successful long term if they're not teachable, willing to learn, willing to adapt, but also persevere in that, to go through change after change after change after change. Because if there's nothing else true about any of the stuff I've said, it's that change is coming. Change will happen.
Hello, fellow creative voyagers. This week on the Indy Author Podcast, I have part 2 of a wide-ranging conversation with Nick Thacker about 6 keys to author success. In part 1, we discussed quality writing, professional presentation, and strategic marketing. And in this episode, we talk about building an author platform, including the importance of building on land that you own, networking and community, and the options offered by in-person and virtual communities, and adaptability and persistence, including whether persistence can ever be a disadvantage. And now, let's hear from Nick Thacker for part 2 of his thoughts on the last 3 of his 6 keys to author success. So we've now gone through 3 of the 6 keys to author success: quality writing, professional presentation, and strategic marketing. And we are on to 4, which is building an author platform. So talk a little bit about how building an author platform differs from strategic marketing.
Sure. Yeah, this doesn't have to be the 4th thing that you tackle as an author. I had a web design company. I was building websites and hosting, and so building platforms, which are effectively just a website. Building a website was sort of like the first thing that I did, and I'm glad I did because I'm good at it. It was a place I called my home base. Everything kind of started and ended there, but it was also something I could do while I was waiting around for query letters to be sent out and rejected. And so it felt like taking good active action. So you don't need to wait until your marketing game is, on point before you build a platform. Frankly, I might even put 4 before 3. Start building a platform when you've got a few books out. You know that this is something you want to do long term. Now they need a place to live online on land that you own, as we say, right? You don't want to build your empire on rented land. So having those social media profiles, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever it is, Twitter, X, I don't know. Those are great. And that's a great way to reach potential new readers and fans, but they can change the game, and they do change the game at any time. And so having your own author platform, AKA website, is very, very important. At some point in your author career, you're going to want to focus on that. It's the combined, what I call a platform is the combined reach of your author's presence. So it's online and offline. So it's not just a website necessarily, but this is just your brand platform in some sense. It helps work for you 24/7. When you're not doing something, you're not online or you're not doing book signings or whatever it is, your website or your brand, whatever it is that you've built, will be working for you. And so it's important to think through this and be strategic about this as well. You are building a brand, whether you know it or not. And so take the time to get a logo that you like, that's going to go on everything, maybe 2 if you have different pin names or whatever, but get that website up so that no matter how people find you, they end up there and they see, oh, this is a whole world that I can now get lost in. I can find these different series and I can buy them from the website. or link out to Amazon or whatever, but you now control a platform online that cannot be changed by external forces unless you decide to change it. And that's the power of a platform. It's something you fully control. It's land that you own. But yeah, think of the platform as everything. It's the website is sort of what I call the home base, but all those outposts, you're putting your branded memes on Facebook, or your branded images on Instagram, or your branded trailer videos on Twitter or YouTube, and so all of those things are part of your platform. And if you think through this, the reason I have this broken out as a point is it's not just about getting a pretty, Wix or Squarespace or WordPress website and calling it a day. It's about thinking through, how might people find me? And once they do, what's the call to action that I've put? What's the little seed that I want them to follow, ultimately leading back to where? And that where is your author platform. So I hope that makes sense. It's all these channels, but ultimately it's what do you want people to do? You may be running ads, so you can control that flow. I want to find people on Facebook who click through and then go to my Amazon sales page and buy my book. That's great. But what if somebody reads that book and wants to find more of your books? They need to go somewhere. They need to have some place they can go. And that place is called your author platform.
Okay. I'm going to use this opportunity to ask a completely self-serving question, which is that and I'm also tapping into your web hosting expertise, that back in 2013, I guess, when I was getting ready to publish my first book, I got mattydalrymple.com. And later on, I got other ones, like my characters in one of my series is Ann Kinnear, and she has a business, and occasionally they refer to her website. So I got annkinnear.com too. And I got them through GoDaddy because why not? I didn't know anything. And then I was using Weebly as my website builder, which I actually don't mind, but they were bought by Stripe, and they're not promising to support it after the middle of next year. So I'm looking for options for Weebly specifically, and I'm thinking, based on my research, that Wix is a good option. But I'm really confused about the hosting side of it. Like, I don't love GoDaddy, but I have no idea what is involved in moving a website off its current hosting thing. Can you just give a tiny primer for the non-technical people among us? If people are looking for that kind of change, how do they go about it? How extensive is that process?
Well, depending on when this goes live, check out author hosts with an S at the end, hosts.com. That's where I've just been putting, I've been hosting websites for 20 years probably at this point. So I'm not new to the game, but I am finally making it more official and saying, hey, there's a way to do this and a process and all that. Got a team, that I'm hoping to put in place so that we can scale. But the point is, this may be ready to go. So you can just go there and we can handle transferring it in and getting it hooked up with whatever hosting you need. Generally speaking, yeah, your domain name is like the address. If you own a trailer and that's where you live, that's your home. And you can move that home wherever you want. And the street address changes. That's the domain name. And that domain name can change or stay the same. But it's essentially a wholly separate thing than hosting the website. So your host can be over here on, hosting company A, but you bought your domain from GoDaddy or Hostinger or HostGator. And all you have to do is connect those by way of what's called an A record, DNS record. So you can absolutely move to probably any other host, depending on how your website's built and all that. If it's modern, most of these places are. And so you can, pretty safely assume that, hey, I found hosting, I'm going to move my website over here. Now, how involved that process of actually moving is really depends on the website. And even if it's, as you say, Weebly, well, there could be, gigabytes of pictures and videos with that, or there could be some kind of special code that was written for that website. And so it's important, to realize that every website's different. Even the most basic ones can have different, PHP configurations and stuff. So that's what I'm hoping to help authors do, is say, hey, okay, you want to do this, move it over to us. Great. We'll handle that. No worries. Or if you want to move somewhere else, understand you might have to upgrade your PHP installation, which could break your site. I know this isn't making anything any easier for you, Matty, but the truth is it can be complicated. There could be a lot more to it. Typically what authors are doing when you're building a platform, you go get a WordPress website, you go get a Weebly site, you go to Wix site or Squarespace. And sometimes, like with Squarespace and Shopify, they host the website for you. You don't have to worry about it. That's a great option because you don't have to worry about it. Just pay them the money and they'll do the work. It's when you start moving things around, like you can't take a Shopify store and self-host it. You pay them and they're hosting your store. And so if you want to move, you have to rebuild the website. And so it just depends on the configuration, what the website's built on. Then there's the e-commerce component, right? Like if you're using WooCommerce, which is a WordPress plugin, you can't easily go to Shopify because they're made to compete with each other. Anyway, I don't know that helped you at all, but generally speaking, a WordPress website running on server A will work on server B that also hosts WordPress websites. There's usually not going to be any problem. So as long as you find that, hey, I can take my code and self-host it, which you can do with WordPress and I think Weebly, maybe with some other cPanel stuff, but you can't do with Wix or Squarespace because by design, their model is wrapped into also hosting the website for you. If you have your own code, if you have your own files, essentially, generally you can move those to a new server and you're good to go. And yeah, it's involved. It can be, an hour-long process or a 24-hour-long process, depending on how comfortable you are with all that stuff. But it's effectively just taking files on your computer and moving them into another folder and then just making sure that folder can still run the website. That's really what you're doing behind the scenes.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that aspect of Wix being both a web builder and a web host. That's helpful.
I think Wix is. I could be wrong, but like something like Squarespace, I know, that you go pay them. It's like Medium. If you want to start a blog, you can blog on Medium all day long, but you can't take Medium's code with you and have another Medium website on your own server. You can take your content, you own that, I think, depending on how the terms work, but you can take your content and say, I'm going to host this on a WordPress website, but now you're building a whole new website on WordPress.
Right. Yeah, I back up my Weebly sites every month, and I always wondered if I just could take that backup and like implement it somewhere else, like
If it's all the code
restore it
and the
somewhere
database
else,
and
so
all
to
that,
speak.
sure. That's the idea. And that's how we move websites. So a WordPress website, which is what we do and host and recommend, you can find a plugin that will do a backup for you, Duplicator Pro, or, anything like that. And it will just make an archive file of all your files and, folder structure and all that. And then in the WordPress core installation, but also your database, which is the data that you have on your website, the content, all that. And then it'll make an installer file, and you just load both of those onto a new server, and it will extract the stuff and set it all up for you. And in a perfect world, the world's not perfect, so hear me say this, there's always going to be an error or 10, but in a perfect world, it'll be running right away. But truth is, even though it's WordPress and every server on the planet can be configured to run a WordPress website, not all web servers are configured to run that same exact website in the same exact way. There could be Apache versus Nginx, whatever. There's all kinds of stuff under this, behind the scenes. But my goal with AuthorHost is so you don't have to worry about that. You just say, hey, I want to pay you $15 a month to host my WordPress website. We'll get it. We'll install it. We'll make sure it works. And you never think about it again. It's just going to work, and it's going to be the fastest website you've ever seen.
Excellent. So we talked a little bit about building the author platform, which could be 3 or 4, depending on your perspective. And another one, and I love talking about this, is networking and community as one of the 6 keys to author success. So what is your perspective on networking and community?
My perspective is that you need it. I think this is especially with a career like being an artist and being kind of an isolated, you work by yourself. The idea is you work by yourself, and it's so much better to have these networking and community pieces in place. That's all that's all I can say, really. I started doing this, it was over a decade ago. I started writing, and I was still working a day job. And when I decided to leave the day job and become a writer full time, I had panic attacks. I had major anxiety issues and depression. My world came crashing down because I was isolated. I was alone. I got scared. I didn't have anybody in the trenches with me. I obviously had a wonderful, loving wife, but she's not a writer. She doesn't get it. She's not in the world. And so I realized the hard way how important going to conferences, talking to other authors, having interview type situations like this, just having friends, that's your community, and being part of that community, being active and talking to them, and just recognizing that, yeah, they're not in your career. You're not writing my books. I'm not writing yours, but we're both writing books. We're both experiencing the same Amazon woes. We're both going through the battle with Facebook ads together. Whatever it is absolutely crucial for our mental health, period. End of story. But even if your mental health is so good and you never have to see another human being in your life ever, I still think building relationships with other authors, publishers, industry people, that's going to open up so many more opportunities than you thought possible, whether it's collaborations, endorsement deals, contracts, traditional publishing contracts, or just insights. There's people that I call that I don't know how to, I'm a millennial. I don't call people, but like people that I might reach out to and say, hey, I hear you're moving over to ACX, which is Audible, Amazon. Can you tell me this or that? And they're like, if they can tell you, they'll tell you because they're your friend. And you only get that by participating, by being part of that community, by being active, and usually in person. It just works better. Yeah, you can spend all your time on keyboard, which is a shithole. Sorry. I never want to go to places like that because it just tends to be hostile and, whatever. It's so much easier to just go in person, talk to these people who are normal human beings in real life, and shake their hand and give them a hug and say, oh, what are you doing? What's going on? And then you call them a friend. And then when you go talk to them online, they have that relationship already. They know who you are. You know who they are. But it's just, I don't need to really belabor this point either. I think we all understand how important, like, humans were made to commune. Like, we were made to be together. Not all the time. And certainly not, people are negative and I'm going to cut them out of my life. Sure. But generally speaking, we are made to be with other people. And so you have to, as an author who has to do their job by themselves almost, it's that much more important to go make sure you have a community, a network to tap into, to be a part of, to plug into, just be around other humans. Simple as that.
Yeah. This is great because it's giving me all the opportunities to repeat the things that I like to repeat over and over again. But I definitely agree about the power of the in-person event. But I think that people can capitalize on that by extending it to virtual get-togethers, because they're like, I wouldn't be able to be chatting with you if it weren't for Zoom.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And another good example is from 20 Books is I went to 20 Books and I got to meet a bunch of people that I had met through, they had all been on the podcast or were imminently about to be on the podcast, or I'd met in some other way. I'd been on their podcast, what have you. And now we're having monthly Zoom get-togethers just to check in. So it's
Yeah.
nice to be able to tap into both of those, and especially because conferences can be so expensive, and the travel, is both expensive and stressful, I think, and often uncomfortable for people who are maybe more tending to
Oh,
be
sure.
introverts. So in the opportunities where people can do in person, I think that's great. And if you can't, then don't think that those opportunities are missing for you.
No, thanks for saying that too. The last 4 years has taught us that we can do a lot of this stuff remotely, including, being part of a network and part of a community. And you're absolutely right. You don't have to go to conferences. I like conferences and I am extrovert, but I understand that not everyone does. And that's totally fair. I do think that, being in real life with people can kind of accelerate some of that process. Whereas it might take you and I, 5 or 6 of these calls before we can call each other friends and we're like, we're having sharing stuff together. Maybe, maybe not. But if I meet you in person, you're gonna get a story, you're gonna get something that happened today that has nothing to do with writing, and we're gonna have a drink together or whatever. And it tends to accelerate that relationship, I find. But it's not a requirement by all means. Don't feel like you can't be a writer if you're not going to conferences. That's not true at all.
Yeah. I think there's also a nice tie-in between that idea of community building or networking. Networking feels a little creepy and LinkedIn-ish, but
yes, the word networking is not one I would like, to use, but it is the best way to describe this idea of being with other people in your industry who work in the same sort of field that you do.
yeah. And I think that if you can get rid of the weird baggage, the weird kind of corporate baggage that the word networking has, the value of it is this idea of the web of connections. And I tried to do this many years ago. I started having this realization of the importance of building these kinds of networks. And I tried to do a visual of, oh, I met this person at a conference and then they gave me a blurb on my book and then somebody read the book, and I was trying to represent it graphically, and it immediately became so complicated that it didn't work well. But I think back on all the opportunities I've had and how many of those I can trace back to a conversation I had with somebody at a conference or something like that. So first of all, there's just the fun of it. There's the good karma of being a member of a community and both benefiting
Yeah.
from that, but also paying it back. And then there's just a ton of concrete business, financial, career benefits you can get out of it that you miss if you don't participate in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a small story. I was just at a conference here in town, Superstars Writing Conference, and
Mhm.
I went to go get coffee with some industry people, friends of mine. And one of them pulled out a credit card, paid for all of our drinks. And I made the comment, oh, I'll have the same card because it's such a great, you get 3 times the points on social media ad spend, that's the kind of stuff that, that natural in-person interaction, like you mentioned financial, stuff like that's the sort of advice that you get. I didn't go to a class, I didn't go to an online course or whatever to learn that. I'm sure that probably somebody would sell that to me if I asked, but it's just just very quick little interactions where, had I not known about that card, he would have told me, yeah, I use this one because I get 3 times the points on whatever. It's just little things like that you pick up, taxes, whatever it is that, authors have to deal with, because we're also people in a society that are really great networking opportunities. But like you said, yeah, it's very corporate to say that that's network, even though that's technically what we were doing. We're just hanging out. We're just buddies. And the conversation that we had when we had our coffees led to all sorts of things that could become partnerships and fun and opportunities. And, you can do that online, but it is a little faster to do it in person. I am a proponent of going to conferences and getting out of your comfort zone. And, you don't have to go to 20 a year like I do, but go to one. Pick a big one to go to and say that I'm going to save my money. I'm going to do this and I'm going to just go and be around. Highly, highly, highly recommend it, because I think you will walk away with at least something you didn't have before that you couldn't get anywhere else.
Well, it's funny that Superstars came up because I was recording an episode of a different video series I have called What I Learned, where I interview authors about their latest book. And I was interviewing Todd Funnestock. And he mentioned that he had just been at Superstars. And I said, oh, I started listing all the people I knew that were going, including Joshua Esso, who had been a previous podcast guest who turned out to be friends with Todd. And then this is a perfect example. I had been introduced to Todd because I knew Mark Lefebvre, who I had met through being a patron of his, and then contacting him about wanting more information about short fiction, which led to us co-authoring a book. And then I stayed in touch with Mark. And then when I met Todd at 20 Books, I wanted a virtual introduction, and I knew that I had seen a social media post with Mark and Todd. So I asked Mark to give me a virtual, I think that's a perfect
Yeah.
example. But that actually comment started out saying that it's also a great way to vet opportunities because now I've met and spoken with so many people who go to Superstars, and I can learn more about it, and I can get the behind the scenes scoop and see
Yeah.
if it's for
Yeah.
me.
You can
And
ask them exactly how they felt about it. And if
yeah,
it's not a conference worth going to, you'll find out very quickly by talking to people you trust. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Right. And we talked offline too, like, well, I want to get you in there. You should go speak, and we're, trying to figure out how to make that happen and stuff. But because it is a conference that is worth going to, it's a lot of fun. A lot of people there that are, I would want to network with.
Yes. Yeah, there are a couple of ones where not only do the programs look great, but all the people that I wanted to catch up with are there, and Superstars is definitely one of them.
Right. Right.
So maybe this is a good segue to item number 6, which is adaptability and persistence. So I love that you included this as one of the 6 keys to author success. I think another one, just like quality writing, that could sometimes be overlooked. So share some insights on the importance of adaptability and persistence.
Yeah. So similar to the idea of quality and our craft being foundational to our success, I don't think a long-term author, somebody who's in it for the long term, will be successful long term if they're not teachable, willing to learn, willing to adapt, but also persevere in that to go through change after change after change after change. Because if there's nothing else true about any of the stuff I've said, it's that this is change is coming. Change will happen. You will be forced to change something about something that you do, big, small, in between, maybe both. And it's so important to recognize and acknowledge that. Now, everybody I tell this to is like, yep, that's fine. I understand. I got it. And then something happens where, Amazon said, we're changing the payout to this, and KU is going to be kind of this 2.0 thing, and everyone loses their mind. Or, a new industry veteran, pops up and says, hey, I'm doing this or that, and it's unethical and surprise. And everyone's like, they lose their mind, or Amazon comes out and says, we're going to ask you to check a box that says, is this AI generated or not? And that people lose their mind. And so the point is, not that authors are always losing their mind. That's probably true too. But the truth is, if we can't adapt, we're going to die. We're going to get left behind. We're going to just quit. If you cannot adapt and you can't be forced to change in some certain ways, you're going to get left behind. You're not going to get to call this a career for very long. It's an adolescent industry. It's not a baby anymore, but it's certainly not grown up. It's certainly not, the 200 plus year history of traditional publishing that you can go and find. And it's a dynamic industry, right? It's so subject to variables that we wouldn't think are related. And the point is just that things change. And if you aren't on board with that, you're going to have a hard time. And you might make it for a year, you might make it for 2 years, but 5 years into it, things change in every single week. You're going to probably be exhausted if you didn't expect that. So I put this in there because it's a reminder to myself that, hey, change is coming, but it's also a reminder to people who think that they're, ready, think that, okay, well, I understand how this industry works right now. It's going to change, just because email marketing is important today and Facebook and, advertising and all that is important and social media is important. Pick one of those things. How many changes have we? It's February. We just had 2 weeks ago, Google and Yahoo colluding and deciding how we're all going to send email from now on. And they just laid down that, the hammer. That wasn't expected, for the large part, it wasn't expected. Or TikTok, Book Talk becoming so popular. I didn't even know what that stupid website was 4 years ago, 3 years ago, even.
Yeah.
And it may not be around, it'd probably be around, but it's not going to be as useful. Right. And so the point is that everything will change, and a lot of things in the indie author community will change very quickly, and it kind of takes us by surprise. So the second half of that is persistence. It's being able to say, okay, I know things are going to change, but I'm going to write my books. I'm going to study. I'm going to be teachable. That's such an important thing. I'm going to go network and commune with other people doing it. I'm going to share ideas and swap, horror stories of advertising, figure out what I need to do. And I'm going to keep going, stay the course, write more books. No matter, at the end of the day, I'll figure out how to do the marketing thing. I don't know how many times I felt like the rug's been pulled out from under me when I figure out an advertising tactic. I think personally, Matty, I broke the ACX promo code thing, and they stopped doing that. It used to give you free promo codes for every book, 50 to you and 50 to the narrator. I reached out to my narrators and was like, give me your codes. I know you're not using them. I'm going to make us a bunch of money. And I set up a thing on my website called the Amazing Audiobook Giveawayer Thingamajig. And you would go in and you'd have to be, signed up to my mailing list. but I would give you a code for any book that you pick. I had all my books, covers on the page, and you click it and put your email address in, and I would send you a code for that book. And we all knew that, promo code was just a generic code for any book in their store, but I would tell people, go buy go get this book with this code. And they used to pay you I can't remember what they called it, but it was a certain type of payout you would get. It was like a sale from that promo code. And I made like $18,000 one month, and then like $12,000 the next month. And I was like, this is it. I made it. I was great. And I talked to it was actually at Superstars like 4 years ago. I talked to this girl named Hannah who worked at ACX, and she was representing them there. And I was like, hey, what's the deal with this? I'm making a killing. I feel like I'm gaming the system though. And she's like, well, it's kind of what it was designed to be. And it's kind of a loss leader to get people, to get an Audible account set up and all that. And I swear within 2 weeks, they were like, hey, we're going to sunset this code thing.
Oh no.
Doing this. Damn it, I shouldn't have said anything. The point is things change, right? The point is it's always going to change. If I didn't have a book to advertise, I wouldn't be able to continue working, right? My point is it all comes back down to what we're writing. It all comes back down to writing more books and being, building those relationships through email marketing, social media with our readers. It doesn't matter. The way to do that is going to change, and the way that I communicate with people will change, and my quality will get better, hopefully over time. But, if I'm just the Mickelson twins teaching people to go, steal an audiobook and sell it, and then this happens, those people are all out of business. They don't have their own books to use. They don't have their own audiobooks to rewrap in new content, new ways and sell. So, and I do mean to bash on them because I think they're scammers and they should probably go to hell. But the point is, you can build a career in spite of all this change by building a career in spite of all this change. It's not that hard. Know that change is coming, be willing to persevere through it, and write more books, and you'll be fine. Truthfully, you really will.
I wanted to probe the persistence a little bit because it's one of these things where persistence is a positive quality, but any quality taken to an extreme can be a bad thing. And I'm trying to frame this question up in a way that isn't impossible to answer. But when I look at my own business practices, I think some people pop in and out of stuff, like pop in and out of Facebook ads, or pop in and out of Amazon ads, or pop in and out of book swaps or whatever. And I'm not a popping in and out, or I'm a stick with it-er. But I think sometimes I stick with it longer than I should. And obviously the way you have to judge that is going to be very different than if you're thinking about, do I want to continue writing versus do I want to continue running a Facebook ad? They're like quite different questions, but I think they both carry dangers if you stick with something for too long. So are there any sort of caveats you would add about the persistence? Like, is there a point at which persistence in an author career can hold someone back rather than helping them move forward?
Well, I don't mean persistence in specific practical tactics like Facebook ads, for example. I do believe that that's probably one where having ads running all the time is better than not, like generally speaking. But if you are running a Facebook ad that isn't working, for all intents and purposes, we can know if it's working or not because we have attribution now from Amazon, and we can see, we direct sales. We know exactly how many sales are coming in. And if you're running a Facebook ad that's not generating more money than it's costing you, don't be persistent in that. Don't, stop the ad. So I mean, more generally, you should always be using email marketing. You should generally always be doing social media, generally doing advertising. But there's a lot of wiggle room with it. And my definition is just generally do those things, generally be persistent. I'm not saying that every day you have to post on social media at 12 p.m. I'm saying pop in and out, set up. What I like to do is batch a bunch of content at the beginning of the month. I'm late this month because we had a dog die and my parents are in town and a conference and all that. But I like the idea of not ever having to log into Facebook. But I also know that Facebook is important. So persistence in social media for me means let me batch a bunch of content or have an assistant get a bunch of content together, schedule it at the beginning of the month. And that's my social media. That's my touch point for the month. I don't see any of that if I don't log in, but I'm still being persistent in using social media as a tool that can be a force for good for my career. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think that there is a lot of benefit to popping in and popping out. Mental health is the first thing that comes to mind. If TikTok is killing you and you're just nuts every time you do it, and you're kind of going crazy, coming like a political wing nut or something, get out, stop doing it. Don't be persistent in that, but generally be persistent in reaching out to your tribe, wherever they may be. TikTok, figure out a way that's healthy for you to be scheduling stuff, to be posting and responding or whatever you need to do for TikTok. Does that make sense? Like, I definitely, I like your caveat. Like, you don't have to be doing what I do every single day. I teach a lot of this stuff. I do live streams all the time. And I try to make it clear that like, hey, I'm being descriptive here. I'm telling you what I do. I'm not being prescriptive. I'm not telling you have to do this the exact same way. But persistence is in the long term. Like over the last 20 years of my career, did I do social media well? You got to be able to answer yes to that question, or you're just missing a lot of people who you could have reached. But that doesn't mean you were persistent every single day and posting on Facebook, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the pairing that with adaptability is key, because when those things happen in life, I'm very sorry to hear about your dog. When those things come up, then you have to take a step back and say, well, persistence
Absolutely.
might say I continue working on my book, or I continue working on my email strategy or whatever, but adaptability says, sometimes not so much. Sometimes taking a break is what is needed. So yeah, I like pairing those two things.
That's why I did it. I mean, they sound like they might be contradictory, but they really need to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
If all I did was be persistent in taking naps, I would never write another book. Right.
Yeah.
So it's definitions are important and how we break the stuff down, but most reasonable authors will be able to hear that. And like you would just say, all right, okay, you're being able to change and adapt and be willing to move forward and progress also goes hand in hand with being persistent to the things that are core to who I am as a writer, which is writing books, generally marketing, and all the other things I said here. Have that community of people. That doesn't mean you're persistent, go to conferences every single month, no matter what. It means I'm going to go. And when it feels like I'm not getting what I need out of it, or my mental health is struggling or whatever, my family needs me here, take a break. No one's going to fault you for that. You can still be persistent in being a networking and community individual. You just need to take a break.
Yeah. Well, that is also great. Nick, thank you so much for joining me to talk about the 6 keys to author success. And please let everyone know where they can go to find out more about you and everything you do online.
Sure. The easiest place is nickthacker.com. You'll see the homepage there has all the little links to the things that I'm involved in, which is, or as you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, gratuitous. But that, you find my fiction there if you're interested in action adventure thrillers. And I do a lot of nonfiction, teaching, training, coaching, all that kind of stuff at bookcareerinayear.com. So those are the 2 big websites I would recommend.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Do this again sometime.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Nick. Do you think persistence is ever a problem? Was there a situation where you were persistent longer than you should have been? I'd love to hear what your experience was and if you carried learnings from that experience forward into other situations. Just leave a comment on YouTube and please subscribe while you're there. And if you got value from this episode and were thinking, I wish I could buy Matty a cup of coffee, you can do that. Scroll to the bottom of any page at theindyauthor.com and click Buy Me a Coffee to make a small contribution via PayPal or Stripe. Until next time, here's wishing you favorable winds and smooth sailing on your creative voyage.